Hello students, hope you all are doing good. Yes, today I am just going to continue the previous topic, nervous system, and till brain I taught you children. Central nervous system is made up of two main parts. First one, the head region, which consists of brain, that I taught you in the previous class in detail. Hope you would have understood clearly children. Now the continuation of that central nervous system, second part is spinal cord. As I told you, the last part of the brain here, medulla oblongata, the stem, which continues down from the neck region till the last lumbar vertebrae. So it begins from here, the posterior part of the medulla oblongata will give out the spinal cord. There the first spine bone begins and ends in the first lumbar vertebra, that is nothing but the back side you have near the back hip region. Okay, when we talk about the structure of spinal cord children, it's a very interesting structure. It has a cylindrical body. Actually, to say it's a rod shaped structure which is covered by a vertebral column outside. Outside they are just covered by a column. Imagine a pillar in the building. So like that pillar, in between one rod is given. That rod only is spinal cord and covered by vertebral column. Is that clear? So in between the vertebral column and spinal cord, that's called neural canal. So that neural canal is again filled with the fluid called CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. This I mentioned here in the brain also. So cerebrospinal fluid is a fluid which acts as a lubricant. Okay, so that spinal cord will cooperate with you when you bend and when you stretch your head and all. So the bone should stretch as well as it should bend, isn't it? So for that function they are in need of a special fluid which is just running in between the vertebral column and the neural canal. Okay, it acts as a lubricant, and the CSF fluid is just coming from the brain till your, as I told you, the lumbar region. So which acts as a lubricant. Okay, so this is about the spinal cord structure. When we just talk about the cross section of this, you just imagine this is spinal cord. I'm just going to cut like onion pieces. Yeah, onion pieces, how do you cut in a circular form? Like that you cut and keep it under the microscope. You can see that structure in this diagram, children. And this diagram tells you very clearly the internal part of the spinal cord. Okay, when you look at the spinal cord, again spinal cord is made up of two matters, M-A-T-T-E-R. Remember myelin sheaths topic I told you, they are made up of white matter and grey matter. Okay, same way here also, when you're talking about this particular spinal cord in a cross section, the center part of the spinal cord, no, it resembles in the alphabet H. You can see the diagram, H alphabet. And in this alphabet H is grey in color because it is made up of grey matter. Okay, and you can see the anterior part and posterior part of this H shape. You can see the special structure which are called as posterior horn and anterior horn. So posterior horn, when you talk about the anterior part, otherwise I can tell you the H shape you have, no, the upper part of the H shape is called posterior horn and the lower part of the H shape is called anterior horn. So from this horn, otherwise called it as afferent and efferent also, afferent root and efferent root. And why we are talking about this posterior horn which is present in the upper half of the H shape structure, they give out lot of nerve fibers, children. Same way posterior part, anterior part, posterior part, which are nothing but, as I told you, posterior horn and anterior horn. They will just give out lot of nerve fibers. All these nerve fibers will be joined together and they come out as a spinal nerve. Is that clear? Spinal nerve is a combination of so many nerve fibers which are just given out from the upper and lower part of the grey matter. Okay, so when that spinal nerve comes out and they just join together and they will be just connecting the spinal cord with the brain, and they receive the impulse from the receptor, and that receptor will send the stimulus through these nerve fibers, spinal fibers, and it reaches the spinal cord. Then it goes to the particular region or the site of the brain where brain will respond to that stimulus. Is that clear? So when you talk about this particular horn, as I told you, posterior horn, otherwise it's called afferent root, and anterior horn which is present in the lower half of the H-shaped structure is called as efferent root. Both together form spinal nerves and their function is sensory and motor. Okay, sensory and motor impulses. What is sensory impulse? They receive the impulse or the stimulus from sense organs, like you have ear, tongue, skin. These are all the sense organs. They receive the impulse from these regions and they carry it through their fibers and reaches the spinal cord. From there it goes to the brain. So they are called as sensory neurons. Okay. Then they have motor neurons are coming out from the spinal cord. They receive the answer from or the response from the brain, and through the spinal cord it comes, again it reaches the effector organ, that we call it as answer or response. This is how the impulse is being taken to the brain through spinal cord, and the brain will respond accordingly. Okay. So as I told you, brain is the controlling center of the body. Definitely they have to receive the impulses from the organ, and they have to and fro function they must do. That is done only with the help of spinal cord. So spinal cord plays a very, very important role, children. As I mentioned earlier, CSF fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, which is a fluid, as the previous lesson I told you, lymph fluid. Lymph fluid is a colorless fluid, children. Mobile fluid, which is running throughout the body. That's why it's called mobile fluid, but same way it is colorless. Same way here, another fluid called CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, which you can just see inside the skull region, cranial region, where the brain is completely floating inside the CSF. Okay. And the continuation, as I told you, brain has the continuation with the spinal cord, children, through the brainstem medulla oblongata. So the CSF fluid will come down, okay, throughout the length of the spinal cord, and they act as lubricant. Not only lubricant, I can tell you so many functions it does. The main function is it absorbs shocks, hence it is called as a shock absorber, and protect the brain from any damage. For example, sudden noise or sudden incident happens which you cannot tolerate, louder noise and all, no, that time that shock which is received from the external environment will be absorbed by the cerebrospinal fluid. So CSF fluid is very, very important to maintain the equilibrium between the brain and the outside environment. Okay, that's the first function, shock absorber. Second one is they automatically supply nutrients. Okay, nutrients are very, very important for the brain as well as the spinal cord. So they first supply the nutrients to the brain. When they supply nutrients to the brain, automatically waste materials will also be collected by that. So CSF fluid acts as a media to supply food as well as collecting excreta. You understand, children? Yes. Then they maintain the osmotic pressure inside the cranium. Cranium, I told you, this is the outer covering of the brain, and there is a pressure because CSF fluid is increased or decreased, it's going to be very, very difficult for the brain to function normally. It should always be in an equilibrium condition. The CSF fluid should be maintained in a particular amount. Once it increased or decreased, also dangerous for the brain. Okay. So it maintains a equilibrium layer, constant pressure inside the cranium, so that the brain will work in a proper condition. Okay. So let me just move on to the final part of the lesson, reflex action, children. Reflex, what do you mean by reflex? Some stimulus is being given that you are going to reflect, that you are going to react, that's called reflex action. When we talk about the reflex action, there is a word called reflex arc. What is the meaning? So when the stimulus is being conducted, as I told you in the beginning when I was talking about the section of spinal cord, I told you the tip of your finger or the hand is the receptor organ where the stimulus will be received. That might be a pain or a heat or any other stimulus which comes from external environment. This particular part of your finger is receiving, so it's called as a receptor organ. When receptor organ receives, what happens? They send it to the so many neurons in between, that I am going to tell you in the diagram. So these neurons are just taking the impulse. Where are they going? They join together, they coordinate with each other, they reach spinal cord, and finally through the CSF fluid they reach the brain also. So brain will respond. Okay, this is what the sequence. But when they just travel through this track, they always form one arc shape structure. Arch, arc shape travel. The shape is arc, like arch. Okay, they travel through that shape, and hence it is called reflex arc. Okay, the pathway of the stimulus will always be carried through one pathway that forms the arc, hence it is also called as reflex arc. When we talk about this reflex action, there are two types of reflex action, children. One is simple. Another one is acquired. Okay, simple is basic. Okay, basic, it is inbuilt. By birth you have some reflexes. I'll tell you some example. Winking of your eye, you'll be just winking like this unwantedly, no? Sometimes people will be making fun of you. So that is inbuilt. Some of us will be having from birth that habit that cannot be stopped. And I can also tell you some of the thing. Yawning. See, when a teacher is taking in the class, when the class is not interesting, when you are getting bored up, what will you do? Either you will sleep, or you will act, or you will pretend as if you are listening to us. And some of them will be yawning like this, isn't it? So the yawning. So these are all the inbuilt reflexes. So answers are the reflections which are coming out without your control. They are not under your control. When you are unconscious condition, it will come out. So that's called as simple or basic reflexes. The second reflexes is called acquired. Like you have to be trained. Playing a veena, guitar, playing football, cricket, all these things you should be trained. Yeah, that is called as acquired reflex action. So these are the two types of reflex actions. You can just have the look of the beautiful diagram where it has been colored in blue color, children. Next, let me just go back to the reflex arc. Do you remember just now I completed path of the reflex action? Here we have different neurons, as I told you. The tip, when you touch a hot tumbler, yeah, so this particular tip of your finger will be sensitized. Yeah, it feels so hot, the heat will be sensitized by the tip, and that heat will be traveled through that pain, or that particular second you are getting that pain, and that will be just traveled through so many neurons. That is called as pathway of reflex action. So this particular stimulus will be carried to the spinal cord first. That I will teach you now. Reflex action has its own pathway. So that the pathway taken by the nerve impulse to accomplish or to get back the answer is called as reflex arc. And the pathway I will tell you, children. Here, for example, if you have a hot tumbler here, and I ask you to touch it like this, immediately you drop it down, you get the feel here, yeah, that pain for a second. That is called a stimulus. Okay, this stimulus or this particular region, you have cells called receptor cells. Since they receive heat, they are called heat receptors. Okay, so heat receptors receive the symbols. You can just see the diagram. First one, receptors, and the stimulus will be carried to the sensory neurons. Next comes sensory neurons. After sensory neurons, so all these are sensory neurons. Immediately passes. I told you the structure, synaptic junction, how one neuron is getting connected. So quickly the stimulus will be passed on through your shoulder, and it reaches your spinal cord, children. From your spinal cord, motor neurons. So they just take the impulse quickly to the brain, and again that motor neurons receive the answer from the brain. Brain will say, come on, drop it down, otherwise you'll get pain, you'll get heat boils, you can't hold it. This is the action you have to do. So that answer will be given by the brain, children. So it has to come through the same pathway. So now the stimulus is being taken through the spinal cord, reaches the brain. The brain is giving an answer. Motor neuron receives and gives the reply to the organ or the muscle or the gland which is going to be responding to that question. Is that clear? Now the last part of this nervous system is third type. Do you remember first one we spoke about nervous system component, second neuron, and I spoke about central nervous system. Then we have the peripheral nervous system here. Peripheral, second type. Peripheral nervous system consists of cranial nerves, nerves which are just connected with the cranium, brain. And the second type is spinal nerves, nerves which are connected with the spine. So there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves which are innervated, which are connected together, children, so that the brain is just in a coordinated manner, it functions. Okay, so some are sensory in nature. The 12 pairs of cranial nerves, some of them receive signal from sense organs, and some will be, that's why when they receive the symbols from, stimulus from sense organ like eye, immediately it goes through the optic nerve, and it will reply whether you have to rotate the eyeball or movement of the eyes like this, winking of the eye. All these are done only with the help of cranial nerves which are sensory in nature. Okay, some of them are motor nerves, as I told you, nerves which are helping in rotation of the eyeball, and muscles of iris. Iris is the membrane, the junction of your eye. You have iris and tear gland where you get the tear. No, all these are controlled by some of the motor neurons which are also in that 12 pairs of nerves. Okay, so altogether there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves are present. They are of two types, sensory neurons and motor neurons, and they are specific in their function. And next comes spinal nerves, nerves which are connected with the spinal cord, and you can see 31 pairs are there. Look at the diagram, very beautifully colorfully given. 31 pairs of spinal nerves are there. Each and every part of your body is connected with spinal cord through these nerves. Okay, you know spinal cord is here. So shoulder nerves, from either side of the shoulder, it goes to the first spine nerve. Okay, then the second pair, like the left and right side. So that's why it's given as 31 pairs. So each and every part, I can tell you, from neck, chest region, hands, and your abdomen, lower abdomen and upper abdomen, thigh region, leg region, knee region, all these regions, nerves are just joining on either side, right side and left side, and they are commonly connected by the spinal cord. So both the side, right side of your body, left side of your body, impulses are being taken by these nerves. Stimuli is taken by these nerves and they are sent to the spinal cord. As I told you, it takes it to the brain, and the pathway you know very well, and through the motor neurons again the reply will be given to the muscles. These are the ways the spinal nerves help the what you call it as the next central nervous system to function properly, children. Now let me move on to the last part of the lesson. It's going to be very easy because we are going to finish the lesson, children. Autonomous nervous system is the third type of nervous system in the classification. Autonomous, automatically they function. Okay, they are not controlled by others. That's called as autonomous nervous system. There is another name for autonomic nervous system, visceral nervous system, because they control the visceral organs like heart and lungs and stomach and all. These are all called as visceral organs. They completely control these visceral organs, hence they are called as autonomous or visceral system. Okay, classification. When we talk about the classification of autonomous nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic, they are antagonistic in function. When we talk about antagonism, opposite. For example, sympathetic says you do this, parasympathetic will say you don't do that. Let me just give you an example. Sympathetic will say when Miss is teaching, you don't like to attend the class, sympathetic nerves will command your eyes, close your eyes, and parasympathetic will say don't close, you will be caught by the teacher. Is that clear? Is it interesting, this example? Yes. So sympathetic nervous system prepares the body to respond during emergency period. Okay, any emergency, any stress or danger comes, that time you have to quickly take decision. There sympathetic nervous system will play its role, whereas parasympathetic nervous system will say cool, yeah, cool, just relax yourself, you take rest, like that. So when it says action, this other one will say no, don't do that, relax yourself and don't function, take rest, like that. So both are antagonistic in function. Here I have given two examples for you. The target organs, lungs and heart, you can see how they are function in antagonistic way, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Dilates bronchioles, another one will constrict. Constrict means bronchioles will be constricted during exhalation. Yeah, this is a relaxation, constriction. One will constrict, another one will relax it. Yeah, opposite. But they coordinate with each other so that the system, nervous system will have understanding, and the person will also be a normal person, and the organs will also in a homeostasis condition. Okay, hope you understood this lesson very clearly, children. So with this, nervous system is over, but let me just continue with your practical notes, children. Practicals, zoology, biozoology, when you see, we have very, very interesting two parts of biozoology, children, in the backside of your what you call the last few pages of your textbook. If you see, you have the first part called observation of models, and the second one is observation of slides. Now I am just going to teach you observation of model as well as slide with the help of the models what I have in my hand. Yeah, here you can see a beautiful model. Can you just guess and tell me what is this? This is the entire structure of human heart. Okay, I told you, do you remember? I told you heart is made up of 4 chambers. These 2 are ventricles, upper 2 chambers are called auricles, and here you can see aorta, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, pulmonary artery, pulmonary veins. Do you remember? Just recollect the points what I taught you in the previous chapter, and that is only the part of your practical, children. But in the practical notes you can see it is not the entire one. Section. See, Miss is going to show you now the section. Can you understand now? Inside, the organs which are present inside only you are going to learn. Okay, so when this is kept in the exam, you will have to just write identification and reasons. Description you have to write. Identification you will say the given model is identified as LS of human heart. What is LS? Longitudinal section. You make a section in a longitudinal way, not in horizontal, okay, longitudinal cut. So, it is called longitudinal section. That is why in the textbook you can come across LS of human heart. You understand, children? Yes. Now, when we talk about this general description, as I told you, I am just going to recollect the structure of heart in detail now. You just recollect, take a pause for 1 second and you just recollect and tell me the points now. Yes, this heart is just made up of 4 chambers, 2 upper auricles, 2 are atria, both are same, 2 lower chambers ventricles, and it is covered by a double membrane called pericardium. You remember pericardial fluid is present which acts as a lubricant, I told you. That's all, very easy. Then you have to talk about the arteries and veins. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava brings the deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body and pours it into the auricle, and through that tricuspid it goes to the ventricle. You remember? And there it arises, which one? Pulmonary artery arises, taking the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs for purification. Then from the lungs, who is bringing it back? 3 pairs of pulmonary veins bring the oxygenated blood and pours it into the, which one this is? This is left ventricle. Okay, from there you can see the beautiful big vessel, aorta. Aorta takes the blood and it supplies to the entire part of the body. So, aorta takes oxygenated blood, superior and inferior vena cava supplies deoxygenated blood. Is that clear? This is what you have to write under description. So, it is very easy now. Hope you understood. Yes. Now, let me just move to the second model, which is called as LS of human brain. Just now I taught you, children. So, again write identification. The given model is identified as LS of human brain. Yeah. The description is very easy. There you wrote pericardium. Here I told you meninges. You remember? So, brain is covered by an outer covering called as meninges. You write about dura mater, arachnoid membrane and pia mater. Outermost thick covering is called dura mater. Middle membrane is called as arachnoid membrane. And the inner membrane is called as pia mater. Understand, children? Do you understand? Yes, all these membranes are collectively called meninges. Okay. Now, you have to talk about the 3 parts. I told you brain is divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. And right forebrain is made up of cerebrum and diencephalon. Diencephalon again it is made up of thalamus and hypothalamus. That is enough. Then you have the midbrain is otherwise called as hidden brain, made up of 4 lobes. Anteriorly it is made up of 4 lobes called corpora quadrigemina. Corpora quadrigemina. Hindbrain as usual cerebellum, second largest part of the brain, and medulla oblongata, and the connection is called pons. Okay, that's all. These are the points you will have to write. And medulla oblongata acts like, otherwise called as brain stem, and which connects the brain to the spinal cord. Okay. Now, the third in your textbook is identification of slides that I can't show you. When you are taken to the lab, your teachers will show you. So, there you are just going to write the given slide is identified as red blood cells, and the second one is white blood cells. Red blood cells you see here, and the first topic blood circulation. No, circulation in animals I taught you 2 to 3 types components of blood, RBC, WBC and plasma. That one only you have it for the practicals also. Red blood cells, red in color. Why is it red in color? Tell me the pigment name. Yes, hemoglobin. So, the red coloration of the blood is due to a pigment is present in the blood. That pigment name is known as hemoglobin. So, when RBC cells are more in number, that is also very difficult for you, and when they are less in number, again it is going to have problem in your body. When RBC cells are less in number, you get a disease called anemia. You understand? So, when RBC cells are more in number, then you will get lot of trouble and lot of problem where RBC will disturb the entire function. Yeah, that is called as erythropenia. So, erythrocytosis or erythropenia you get, and it is due to the increased number of RBC cells. So, function of RBC you have to write in your exam. They carry oxygen to different parts of the body. Now, let me just tell you the next slide. Again the same thing. You will have to write about the slide. The given slide is identified as white blood cells, and white blood cells are otherwise called as what? Leukocytes. Yeah. leukocytes, you know very well. You just write the shape and size of the RBC in that slide, and here you have to write, there you have to write disc or spherical in shape, children, but here they don't have a shape. As I told you before, amoeboid in shape, irregular in shape, okay, and they are white color, colorless, because they do not have hemoglobin pigment. That's all. You just remember RBC, just opposite of that you write here, okay, for your exam. And colorless, no pigment present, and as I told you, they are irregular in shape. When you just compare RBC and WBC, RBC has nucleus in the early stage, and mature stages, mature body, RBC cells will not have nucleus in the center. Why? They have to carry more oxygen to different parts of the body, hence the nucleus is replaced. So, disappeared in the adult people like us. So, our RBC cells do not have nucleus in the center because they need more space to carry oxygen. More oxygen will be carried to the tissue, so we will live for a longer period. You understand? That is the reason why RBC cells are not having nucleus. So, they are called non-nucleated, but here the WBC cells are called as nucleated. You can see the diagram. Nucleus are differently shaped. There are bean shaped nucleus, there are bilobe nucleus, dumbbell shaped nucleus, big nucleus, entire part of the cell is occupied by a round nucleus. Yeah, there are they are differently shaped, and accordingly they are named as eosinophil, neutrophil, basophil, monocyte and lymphocyte. Yeah. So, they are specific in their function, but altogether when you say RBCs are responsible for carrying oxygen to different parts of the body, but WBCs are totally responsible to give your body immunity power. What is immunity power? You must get resistance against any disease. Any dust comes, any infectious material comes through your nasal passage, when you eat contaminated food, that means your germs are going up from outside, germs are entering into your body. Immediately one of these WBC cells will come out from the blood, they catch them, kill them and push them out as excreta. Thereby you are out of the disease. You understand? Thereby you are increase the immunity power by killing the infectious material which are coming through your food and contaminated drinking water. Okay. So, they are totally responsible for the immunity power of a human being. Yes. And when you just compare this WBC cell with RBC cells, lifespan is also different, children. They live for 120 days. You have to just go to the theory part and recollect the points. They live for 120 days. And these will live for very short period, 3 to 4 weeks only, children. And when we talk about the where are they produced, same way, and bone marrow, here also bone marrow, but apart from bone marrow, here spleen, liver also they are produced. Okay, so as you all know very well, WBCs are very, very important. They are responsible to increase the immunity power in our body, children. And you should not forget, okay, when you write, when you learn for your exam, what you do, take a paper and write tabular column, this side write RBC, that side write WBC. Here they are spherical in shape, irregular, red in color, colorless, carrying oxygen, this side immunity power, and they do not have nucleus, they are nucleated. So, like that, no, you just match the points and learn, so that you won't miss even 1 mark in your exam, children. But this is a very, very important question, and as I just told you, you can just write the other name of RBC is erythrocytes, WBCs are otherwise called as leukocytes. Yeah. So, I hope you would have understood the practical part of it also. We have only 5 experiments or the exercise in biozoology. First, today I taught you LS of human heart and LS of human brain. Those 2 are coming under models, children, and the last 2 RBC cells and WBC cells, these are coming under slides. We have 1 more that you will be learning in some other chapter, endocrine glands, that we are not having in this 2 units, okay, but you will be learning in the later units. So, that time you can learn that endocrine also, okay, endocrine, that is the 5th practical. With that, the biozoology practical will be over, okay. So, you learn very well. Try to understand the concept, try to differentiate the components and the points and all with each slide or specimen, whatever you learn, try to understand the concept, then you read or learn, you will remember it always. Is it okay? Yes, I hope you all would have understood very clearly, and thank you very much that you have been listening to me so patiently with full concentration, children. All the very best. See you all in the next class.